Hello and welcome to the second episode of our podcast. As you know, we have created our first episode and it wasn't as big of a hit as we thought. Well, of course, we don't have a massive following. But,
I thought it was pretty successful. 30 views in a week?
The audio quality wasn't up to par on that, and we're working on that. We're working on getting that squared away, getting some new equipment. So
like how professional he sounds.
How professional I sound.
Well, it's not even like it's different.
We're working on that.
Puts his hands
We'll
together.
back to you next week. So yeah, we're trying to do these once every week, but no promises because
welcome to.
We are.
Spencer is a busy man.
I am.
He's got a lot going on with some agency stuff.
Just
servers are up. But
servers are trying to be up. It's just a mess right now. But
relative insanity. Ryan.
Okay, so we're gonna say our names again. So I'm Spencer.
I'm Colton.
Okay, good. Ryan.
I also
no.
He's starting to mask his identity, but we all know he's Colton from the first episode.
Also go by Nighthawk.
Yeah, Nighthawk. Okay,
we'll get you action.
So we just finished watching the movie The Stanford Prison Experiment. So to clarify, Stanford Prison Experiment psychology department was creating an experiment to see how humans behaved, how prisons affected humans, right? And then so they printed out an ad in the paper that said $15 a day, come and participate in this experiment. Kids said yes, and then after about the second day, the prisoners started to revolt. The guards started to treat the prisoners badly, and it just got out of hand. And even when there was eventually violent action taken, but the professor didn't stop it. And I think at that point, because they signed contracts saying that nobody will hurt them or touch them, or harm them, but that ended up happening, and that violated the contract. And that
I feel like that also goes against, I know this is probably not the popular belief, but if you think about it, and the movie was accurate, the prisoner wasn't supposed to touch the guard either.
He is, the prisoner was the one that started.
He made the initial contact, which I don't think the retaliation should have been so heavy, but they didn't lock that down, and then it literally all just went downhill from there.
Okay. So the question is why we watched this movie and why we want to do this episode of the podcast on the subject is, okay, what do prisons actually let's just say you were put in prison and you were innocent, you didn't do whatever it was. After you get out of prison, have you changed into a criminal?
I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, but what's your opinion after kind of seeing that?
Oh yeah, I feel like the point they were trying to prove is that they're taking innocent people or normal people in society who are abiding by the laws and stuff, and then you put them in the scenario of a prison, and then you see what happens to them. I mean, you put someone completely no experience over it, give them the power of authority, and then they automatically start to abuse it, which causes the prisoners, they're already stuck in a scenario they don't usually want to be in, then they start being abused by that, and that eventually leads them to, they stray away from the innocence completely. And so what it's trying to, I think, prove is that taking criminals who already have strayed away from their innocence and then putting them in a worse situation such as that, it's more I don't want to say it's being selfish, but I mean it's we're taking those and we're just trying to put them away. And I know something has to be done about criminals and stuff like that, but putting them in that situation is really, it's not progressing them really. It's just trying to keep them away from society, and then it's making them worse criminals, honestly.
Do you think this experiment should have been done in the first place?
I mean, did we really learn anything from it?
I think we already all knew about how bad prison was. I mean, I thought it was interesting to see how quickly and rapidly it happened, but I knew it would happen eventually.
It wouldn't have been made into a movie unless it was extreme,
It was very extreme.
So, I don't really get what he was going for.
I don't know either.
I mean, I understand you want to know, but, if it fails, you get nothing out of it. You wasted time and resources. And if it doesn't fail, you end up with just, 18 messed up people. So there's no, benefit.
But if I was in that situation, like I got out and they're like, we won't press charges, just tell us what we want. I've been like, don't give me student loans, or like take care of my student loans.
Yeah.
That's totally what I've been like. I'd have been like, I'm gonna go here for free now, and everything I'm getting here is gonna be free.
Or at least at least play the system a little bit.
Yeah, like they just walked away. I would have completely sued, honestly.
Okay, I feel like
you could have gotten millions.
I feel like those people.
You could have.
Okay, first of all,
gotten something more.
That professor is not innocent. I don't feel like. Like I guess if no one presses charges, but I just feel like there's no way that
even if they didn't press charges, he should be arrested.
I feel like the 18 people who went in there, the contracts were broken from everyone. Like nothing what happened about it was like legitimate, you know.
And did it really simulate a prison environment though?
No, I don't think you can.
The only way to simulate a prison environment is to actually have a prison.
Is to actually have a prison and actually have prisoners who come in knowing they did wrong.
Yeah. Okay, you have a lot of people out there now.
Well, they got
framed for the crime and they're innocent,
over time.
I think a big thing about that is like to see like how easily the mind can also be manipulated.
Because they came out of that like, oh, I learned something about myself, and they're like, no.
What do you learn?
It's like you learn who you truly are under those circumstances. Like
you learn how quickly of a person you can change to be.
Yeah, but I mean, like those
guard.
circumstances are so like specific. Like I feel like that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just stupid.
Well, the main guard who actually like was the meanest out of them all, he said that he didn't realize that he could change into that person that quickly. Like he was put in a position of control, and then he just went down.
I feel like that was an excuse.
Yeah, an excuse for his actions that he knows were whack.
And then the question is like, would that guard be guilty?
I feel like everyone knows, even if they wouldn't say it. I feel like everyone truly knows like how it would go down. Me in particular, I feel like if I was a prisoner, I would either be obedient and just try to get through it, or I would rebel.
Like I couldn't have been obedient
for so long
for what they made them do.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was a guard, I wouldn't have like kept going. I would have rebelled against the guards, honestly, because that.
And there was one guy, who eventually broke. He was the most obedient, but he broke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a big breakthrough too, because
everyone broke.
When the guy was watching the monitor, he was like watching it so intently. But then when like the guy broke, then he knew like. I think he got his answer from that point. Yeah. When he broke him.
That there's no coming back. Like there's nothing else he needs from this experiment.
Yeah.
Or that they can be corrupted.
Anyone could be corrupted.
Anyone could. Yeah.
And they afterwards they were like, no physical or no permanent damage has been done to their minds. But is that?
I don't think that's true.
Really true?
I don't think it's true.
I mean, they were evaluated heavily, obviously. So afterwards.
But I mean, the 70s. I feel like
it was a different time for sure.
I mean, that experiment wouldn't happen nowadays, anyways. But
I wonder. And now we don't know all the details. We kind of just watched the movie, and we don't know how much of that was made up. But for the most part of what I read, it seems like that the movie lines up relatively accurately. And then the other thing is like Dr. Zimbardo or whatever his name was. Like I wonder if the prisoners when they got out, I wonder if they were like, okay, yeah, we gotta press charges, or they were like, someone was like, no, let's not press charges because he helped us figure out who we really are. I wonder if that thought process went out in some way. It was just a lot of manipulation. Like the professor manipulated him so much that they ended up defending him in the end, I think, by not pressing charges. Like, why did they not press charges?
There's no reason unless they all came to a mutual agreement that they wanted to forget that part of their lives. Mm-hmm. But I mean,
I think it was really embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
And that, like, it really degraded them.
You have to sit in court and watch those tapes?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to touch that again. You don't want to touch on what happened.
It, like, sheared away until they got to, like, their basic and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think those people who were in that experiment, like, they probably have normal lives right now, you know, family,
Yeah.
and, like, I can't imagine if one of those people had, like, a kid, you know, that searched on Google one day, Stanford prison experiment, and they found out that their dad was involved in that. That would just be a weird family thing to, like, overcome.
Yeah, it's just so much is wrong about it. Like,
It made me mad.
it was
made me mad.
very angering. Like,
I just hate it when people like their scenario overall was like
you know, like mean people, right?
no, I don't like mean people, of course. No, but
jerks.
I hate it. I hate them. I hate the fact that the
Cyberbullies.
prisoners just thought that this was all true.
Yeah.
That's what annoyed me the most, was that they actually thought they were in a prison for something that they did wrong. Like, they were all convinced about that. That's what irritates the crap out of me. And it was all because of the guards just degrading them.
It was sickening.
It was
You know?
sickening.
To watch.
I wonder how many, like, the prison experiment was obviously one of a kind, you know, and it's never been done before that, I don't think. But I wonder what other experiments on that caliber
Like
have
failed.
happened, or, you know, and if there was punishment, like, consequence, like, for the people afterwards.
I don't know what other experiments there could possibly be related to that. I'm sure there are, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
One thing I don't believe too is like how the guy was like, I was just trying to push them to see how far until they would say like no more.
That was
like
beyond pushing.
Yeah,
That's-
because they
I think
said
that's
no
BS.
more a lot of times, and
They-
they stopped saying it
they
because
did
they knew they wouldn't
Try, and he just threw him in a hole. Like, he just.
Yeah.
He didn't what was he going to say? Okay, you know, I won't do that anymore.
At one point in the movie, the guy, when they threw him in, he's like, you gotta eat the sausages or else.
He was like, let me out, you know, stop, I'm not
he,
doing this.
he was
And
like,
said
this
no.
isn't right. And he
He said
actually
no.
said,
Yeah.
this isn't right. And I don't understand, like, if you had a moral value, then the guy would have been like, oh, what I'm doing is clearly not right.
Even before that, like, there were things, people said, I don't want to do this, you know, I'm not going to do this. And the punishments were more severe than they should have been.
Maybe he thought because it was an experiment that he himself was above the law. Like, he didn't abide by the laws. He only abided by the rules of the experiment.
If that's
Maybe-
true,
Yeah.
then he lied. Like, he had to have lied in his interview after.
Yeah.
Because, like,
I think he's trying to, in his interviews and stuff, he's trying to make it seem, he's trying to make it seem that he actually did something good to himself.
he's trying to make himself feel better. He's
Yeah.
trying to, like, what would
He
you
won't
call
admit
it?
that it was, well,
He's trying to
he-
rationalize his decisions.
He might have said, like, yeah, I admit it was wrong, but, and then he puts a qualifier on there, like, but.
Yeah, but
to
no,
make
there's no
himself-
but, you know?
Yeah.
Oh man, I had a train of thought, but I forgot it.
This topic is like,
I thought at the end, when the professor like comes down, he's just like, no more, like it's over.
Yeah.
Like I thought they were all just sitting there so silent,
yeah.
and the prisoners finally like recognized they're like, this isn't real. This
Yeah.
actually isn't real. This is actually an experiment, and now it's like
I
all
wonder
gone.
how confused they were. He's like, wait, why are you releasing?
Oh, the guy had to clarify, and he was like
This is closed.
he said the jail is closed.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, and then I thought the John Wayne dude was about to just go knock him out.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I thought he was so into it, and then he thought it was all actually real, and he was about to just continue his like character.
I mean, the guards, like, they got to go home every day, you know?
They were, did they?
On shift.
No, I don't think so.
Where did they go?
I think they all had to stay there because remember they were like you can call for backup.
Oh, they just probably like, slept or something?
Yeah.
They probably slept in like some.
They had to keep the mindset.
An office.
Oh, because think about it. If they went home, they would see their families, and then they would probably tell them like what's happened, and
Yeah.
they would then their mind would be
There
cleared
would
up.
be too many variables, I guess,
Yeah.
on their mind.
Too many outside variables introduced. But and then you think like these things are morally wrong, and then you think about other people who have done similarly wrong things, like I forget what it was, but there was these parents that kept their kid locked in a room, for like the first 13, 14 years of her life.
That's insane.
And they would like chain her to like a chair and stuff. And they would bring her like food like once or twice a day. And then she actually had like an altered mind because of that. She never had any social interaction. She could hardly speak.
You don't know anything else.
Yeah.
Makes me learn a lot. It makes me learn a lot because the last one about like AI, we were talking all about willpower. Yeah, of like them trying to leave and the scenario that they were in, trying to find freedom. But then like it completely just changed shifts around this one, and when their willpower is crushed and they didn't do a thing, like they just kind of quit at one point.
The human mind is just so complex.
It's unpredictable.
Yeah, it's really hard to it's really hard to comment on this because after you read about the Stanford prison experiment, or
we're just staring at each other now, just like I don't know what to say.
I think I missed something last week that I just now realized.
What?
And I know y'all were talking about it, but I just wasn't. I was choosing not to listen.
Why?
I don't mean to get on last week's podcast, but the fact that like AI can never have human feeling, I never related that to the movie. How like no matter how much she tricked him, like she still didn't go back to him at the end,
Yeah.
Like I never related that like AI can't have human feeling.
Yeah.
And this is weird.
I don't know why.
They can just imitate.
I was just thinking, I was like, oh man.
This is weird how we've structured this. Like we go from artificial intelligence one day to some
experiment.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess
it's all about the human brain almost and how it's perceived.
It's like we're doing our own.
Things.
We're like reacting to experiments.
What was also interesting was that the professors that were examining it, they became part of the experiment too.
Yeah.
Was that they became so obsessed, like they forgot their own moral codes.
Yeah.
To just try and see, like how.
It was
far.
almost like it wasn't real to them. Like they were just
no.
Like they weren't attached when they probably should have been. They shouldn't have been if they wanted to keep an experiment.
Yeah.
But there's a point where you got to know.
They just forgot what it was like to be human.
I think the professor was obsessed with okay, he's teaching at Stanford, that's a reputable job, but he wanted to probably go down in history for something. He was like, okay, we gotta do this. I have to
do it big,
He did it too much.
Yeah, and I wonder if he actually has.
I wonder if people
a mental disorder. Like I'm not being that.
I wonder if people actually glorified him or.
His graduate students probably looked up to him like, you're the most amazing person. That's probably why the graduate students went along with the experiment.
Oh yeah.
They were like, do what the professor says and you'll be successful and you'll be the smartest psychologist ever. And that's kind of created a false perception, And that's with any if a professor asked you to, take part in his research, even as a graduate student, you think that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And you could put that on your resume. Not, I don't think the Stanford prison experiment would be a thing to put on your resume.
No,
it was failed. I mean,
it failed,
and it was ultimately flawed to begin with. I think.
Yeah, it was flawed.
I can't really put my finger on the detail. You can conceptually know that it's flawed just by reading about it and understanding the flow.
Just thinking about it, what did he want?
Was he on some kind of level of understanding that we weren't? No, I don't think so. I think.
Do you expect him not to do anything? Why do the experiment if you expect that?
Yeah, it's
he even said himself. He expected a middle ground, or no, he expected, to sit there for 2 weeks and be bored. He came in knowing that, and it was almost too interesting for him to stop it.
Yeah. It's like he based the fact that the experiment kept going, he based all of that on, okay, let's just see what happens next,
Yeah. Let's just see what happens next. And then he
just kept going.
That gradual change made a disconnect from, hey, these are people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my fascination shouldn't overrule someone's well-being,
Yeah.
That was insane just how long the other people went with it.
Yeah,
Like
like
the guards?
other people in the room.
Oh,
the
the
students
graduate-
and his fiance.
And interesting thing about that is the guy from San Quentin that spent like 17 years in San Quentin that was overwatching the experiment. Like he'd invited him.
Or
I thought that was an interesting.
when he was like, I'm just trying to replicate exactly what the prison is, because he was like super harsh and in depth with, I don't know, just.
And then he said
countering them.
that he became what he hated.
What he hated, and he enjoyed it.
And he enjoyed it.
And that's why he hates himself.
Which is like, that should have been a clear indicator right there that like,
this is clearly messed up.
Everyone's gonna get power hungry. No
I
matter.
would really like to know some more details about like they had the priest that came in there about who told. Like,
I know.
Did anybody tell anybody? Like, or they were just like, I'm just gonna let. This
I
happen.
doubt that information's like even out there. I feel like it's such a shunned thing that like
there's a lot of unknowns about what actually went on, like the conversation that happened between people.
I mean, because it's almost like they kind of want it to be forgotten, but it's a good movie. Like it's a story to tell, but don't get into it almost.
Yeah, I think there's some underlying, really illegal things and really, like obviously everybody you can probably find out from research what happened within the prison itself.
Yeah.
Because there was all footage, like, and audio.
It's all documented.
Yeah, but the thing that went on behind the scenes with the professor, well, that wasn't documented.
Because I mean, he's just.
It's just his word, basically.
And he's
He was saying like, yeah, we sit in the room and watched this happen, and he was like, it's just his word that we have to bank on, of what actually happened. Like he can say whatever he wants, but we won't actually know, what he talked to his graduate students about, or the people who saw it, like what they actually thought, or what if anybody told a lawyer.
Did he have to like pass this through a board or something?
I don't know.
Like I feel like
That's
he was
true.
I think he was the head of the psychology department.
Is there no one?
Well, he had to get funding.
Funding, but then even then,
From
like
the university,
I would
to
see
apply for a grant.
where a university would give you funding, but I would feel like they would want to know what happened after. What do you say?
Yeah.
It went bad. What went bad about it? Oh, people were being tortured. Like what? Like I don't know.
There has to be something that we're missing. Like maybe they all signed a contract.
Surely there was. They all signed a.
Well,
Well,
I'm
the
saying
thing
at
was,
the end, what if they all just agreed that let's just put this behind us? We all learned a lot, and we all and a lot of crap happened.
based on like the reaction of that one, or just a couple of the prisoners,
They went clinically insane.
they did. They were getting screwed up in the head. I don't think they would just tell themselves, "Oh,
It's okay.
I'll just work past that. It's okay."
I'll
I feel like some of those people needed therapy.
Mm-hmm.
They had to have needed therapy.
Pops. Okay, we're on something, so we gotta figure out the details. You know what I'm saying? Like if we research it a little bit and just find out.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this website. It's called prisonexperiment.org.
Oh yeah. Is that about the movie or the actual?
It's about the actual experiment, and it says, so there's just like Q&A thing. Who funded the experiment? The study was funded by a government grant from the U.S. Office of Naval Research to study antisocial behavior. So the research team placed newspaper advertisements in Palo Alto Times and the Stanford Daily, offering $15 a day to male college students to study on the psychology of imprisonment. What were the students told before the study began? Students were told that they would be assigned to play the role of prisoner or guard in a study of prison life, that they would be observed and filmed, and that they would be expected to participate for the full duration of the study. From more than 75 people who responded to the ad, 24 students were chosen. 12 to roleplay the prisoners, 9 plus 3 alternates, and 12 for the guards. These students had no prior... Ooh, this is interesting. The students had no prior record of criminal arrests, medical conditions, or psychological disorders.
I remember them asking, and they even said, have you been under the influence within the past year?
Yeah.
I think those are key. Like that's one thing they did right, I guess. You know, that they at least picked people who were already normal, I guess.
I feel like they had to find.
They had to
clear
find
people.
just clear slates, you know, people who had never been introduced to those type of elements.
Prisoners remained in the prison throughout the day and night, but guards generally rotated in 3 8-hour shifts. And there were typically 3 students guarding 9 prisoners.
So 3 sets of guards, 3 shifts.
And it says, what were the main results? Well, the simulation became so real and the guards became so abusive that the experiment had to be shut down after only 6 days. I think, the prison experiment turned into an actual prison because they weren't free to leave.
Yeah. Even though the guards didn't think they were doing that, they didn't have any power over, you know, whether they could leave or not.
Okay, here we go. How does the movie differ from the actual prison experiment? Okay, this is a little bit, so I'll read it. Although the Stanford Prison Experiment movie was inspired by the classic 1971 experiment, there are key differences between the two. In the actual experiment, guards and prisoners were prevented from carrying out acts of physical violence, such as those shown in the movie. In addition, the study ended differently than the movie. In the actual study, Professor Zimbardo's former graduate student and future wife confronted him and said that by taking on the role of the prison superintendent, he had become indifferent to the suffering of his participants.
They hinted at that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they, you know, kept going to get a different ending.
Yeah. He then realized that she was right and announced that he would end the experiment the next day. The movie depicts this confrontation, but to heighten the drama, Professor Zimbardo is shown returning to the experiment and observing the guards sexually humiliate the prisoners, after which he immediately ends the study. So, I don't think at the end, when all of that crazy stuff was going on, I don't think that actually happened. They just did that for the movie.
I
So that makes me
figured
feel a
there-
little bit
I
better
feel like
about that
there-
because that was over-exaggerated.
Yeah, I knew there were going to be like differences in it. I'm kind of surprised that there actually wasn't any physical.
They weren't permitted.
In the actual experiment, guards and prisoners were prevented from carrying out acts of physical violence. But I think that some physical violence did go on, maybe, but not. I don't know.
I feel like there would have to be.
Maybe not to the extent. I mean, but even in the movie, there wasn't a great amount of physical.
I mean, there's like a lot of shoving and kind of like pushing you up against the wall.
There was one instance where someone actually uses like the nightstick.
Yeah.
And that was for defense.
Yeah.
Which
So maybe that did happen.
I mean, because if you
know.
take that out, I mean, there's not much physical. It's just mostly the degrading side of it that's like, you know, makes you step back and think.
So it said, okay, so were the prisoners allowed to quit the experiment? Yes. And some prisoners did discontinue their participation. For the most part, however, prisoners seemed to forget or misunderstood that they could leave through established procedures.
Okay, so that goes back, so they actually were, you know, their minds were tainted. Like, they actually did get corrupted.
And maybe they said that they wanted to leave, but maybe they had to do something else, like follow this certain procedure to go through.
Don't say you want to leave, you know, say you want out of the experiment.
Yeah.
But I just think
I don't know.
That's also kind of flawed because, you know, if your mind's in it, how are you going to remember the contract?
Half the prisoners were released early due to severe emotional cognitive
Well,
reactions.
I don't know, like, if the movie is completely accurate. But when they brought in the priest, and the priest was actually asking them, "How are you going to get out of this prison? And how are you going to prove against your charges and whatnot?" And then they were like, "What?"
They started to believe, you know, what? How am I supposed to get out?
They were intentionally trying to make them believe that they were actually in a prison now.
Yeah, and they were like, "What charge?" And then they kind of thought, maybe I just don't remember, you know.
I drove my revenge ball.
Would you have rather been a prisoner or a guard?
Guard.
Before.
Okay, if you didn't know what the experiment
Yeah, if you
was
didn't
about.
know, would you rather be a prisoner or a guard?
Guard. Just
I feel like
even beforehand, because we were like so many. All of them wanted to be prisoners. I was like, why would we want to be a guard?
I feel like if you're in the college mindset and it's the 70s, it's a different time. I feel like they had the mentality of we don't like guards. You know, because they were all college. They probably all lived alone. You know, they were thinking kind of rebellious. You know, we don't like the law. Mm-hmm. Not that we're gonna go against it, but you know,
that was the time period that was in, everybody
I'd rather be
was
rebellious.
Mhm.
Think of the time period. I'd rather be a prisoner because I don't want to be a guard. No one likes the pigs. Whatever.
Well, I was thinking, heck, if I'm going to be stuck in this situation, I want to be the guy with the stick.
Yeah, I want to be the guy who can protect myself.
Yeah,
I don't want to be
knowing what I know about prisons today.
Yeah.
And just like if a university asks me that, I'm like, I don't want to be submitted to like being locked in somewhere. I would probably be a guard.
Heck yeah.
But now
back then it's a toss up.
Yeah, because
Well, they all wanted to be prisoners. It was weird.
I know, like every
one of them said they wanted to be
the
prisoner.
18 people all said prisoner, so they flipped.
Yeah, the people who became guards were so abusive with it. I think that's very shocking.
Like they didn't stop to think, what if I was in their shoes?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have shoes, but what if I was?
Because well, quite literally, yeah.
in
they were
1973,
restless.
the professor asked the American Psychological Association to conduct an ethics evaluation, and they concluded that all existing ethical guidelines have been followed. So maybe there was probably maybe the movie is trying to hint that what went on in the experiment, maybe some stuff low-key did go on that wasn't ever.
I feel like that guy might have done that just for further, like, it's been 2 years, or well, probably about a year, because it was late 71. It's been a year or two. I need to know, like, he probably felt guilty.
Yeah.
I need to know, at least if not from a moral standpoint, from a logistics standpoint, is what I did wrong.
And Professor Zimbardo wrote the book The Lucifer Effect.
I kind of want to read that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know it's very interesting.
And the question is
an experiment so extreme.
Yeah. And the question is, has he ever apologized for the suffering that occurred? And he said in the book, quote, "I was guilty of the sin of omission, the evil of inaction, of not providing adequate oversight and surveillance when it was required."
He should have stepped in more, is what he's saying, I guess.
Or maybe like the surveillance part of it, like maybe he was saying that, because in the movie there's only one camera in there. There's not cameras in the cells. Maybe stuff went on in the cells.
There was audio in the cells.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But
he didn't want to watch people sleeping, I guess. But he's okay with him getting
nude,
harassed,
and stripped of their rights and clothing.
And all of them, like the people who orchestrated the experiment, all of them went to distinguished careers in psychology or medicine.
I feel like they were already kind of in that department.
Yeah.
They're just kind of,
And the materials from the experiments have been preserved by the Center of the History of Psychology in Stanford University Archives. So all that information is probably out there, but maybe it might take some digging in those archives to figure out, like,
I mean, failed or not, it's still a big deal. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
I don't
And the people obviously suffered.
Yeah, or they wouldn't have asked to leave.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever know what actually went down
Yeah.
there.
Maybe.
It's one of those things that probably would just be forgotten.
Very unknown.
Especially if there wasn't a movie. Think about how low key that would have been.
Oh,
I
yeah.
never knew about it until I just saw this movie. I was like, Stanford, okay.
Yeah.
I'll watch
Actually,
it.
think of what else is.
Then I saw
a
the
lot.
trailer and it was just okay.
What
I
other
really
kind of
wanna watch
experiments
this
have
now.
been messed up?
Yeah, and there's probably tons of experiments that happened within the U.S. that we don't even know, that nobody knows about.
This
That were
movie
really
was
bad.
It's so hard to think about.
2015.
Oh, so this is
It's a very recent.
I didn't know it was that recent.
I thought it would be older.
I thought
The
it'd be
movie
I knew it was
vibes.
recent.
I mean, either way, they were trying to display the 70s, but I thought it'd be
2007.
early, mid 2000, definitely not even in the teens yet.
And there's some news articles about it that, it's considered one of the most notorious psychology experiments ever conducted. And they say that it's debated on whether it was morally correct and whether there were laws broken.
I don't know. That's crazy. I guess besides the whole assault, what else were they? I mean, what laws are that against?
And breaking a contract, is that a law?
It depends
But
on
yeah,
what
I
kind
guess
of law. Yeah,
because
it is.
you would be legally bound to the rules.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they didn't use action,
I mean, they stripped They stripped their natural rights without them being criminalized, but through a contract.
But I mean, he read the contract. It never said you will be. Never said you're gonna lose anything that you would have outside of this experiment.
Well, they did.
Well, I'm saying they did inside. They didn't actually lose it, but is that like illegal?
No, they were stripped of. They didn't have their freedom of speech or freedom of whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm saying that's illegal, right?
That's taking away their natural rights.
Yeah, because
that's given through the Constitution, so to say. But
I mean,
is that legal in the sense that in the contract? I mean, I'm guessing that it would be like we're simulating a prison, so you'll be stripped of those freedoms. Is that right though? Can that happen through a contract?
Yeah, like can that be taken away even through a contract?
I don't know. Yeah. Without breaking a law.
I guess that's why it was heavily debated.
Yeah. Or it reminds me just how much goes on in like one day. Because something like that could be happening like right now.
Yeah, I mean.
And it really shocks me like to forget that someone's life today was like completely shifted somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because have you seen like how many people die a day or something?
Yeah.
And how many are born a day, and
then how many people you actually know? Like, I mean.
Yeah.
How many,
The mind, the normal human mind can only intently know someone really well. They can only know about like maybe 100 people super well.
And I feel like you only truly know one person,
Yeah.
And that's yourself.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So recently in 2015, when the movie was like being made and stuff, Dr. Zimbardo was interviewed. And
I wonder if it's consent.
That's true. Would they have to ask for his consent? I feel like he wouldn't. At that point,
he wouldn't want it public. I mean,
at that point, I don't think it's
40 years after.
He can't press that anymore.
It said, so they asked him, what were some of those dramatic events that couldn't be added in the movie?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he said, what made the original study so powerful immediately was that I had arranged for the Palo Alto Police Department to make mock arrests, which was portrayed in the movie.
Oh.
To arrest the prisoners waiting at home in the dormitory to bring them to actual jail to fingerprint them, take their photograph, and put them in a real prison cell. Then each one would be picked up by my graduate students and brought down to our prison. In the movie, they have only one of those arrests, and the study participant doesn't actually go to jail.
Oh yeah, they do it all there.
Yeah. So apparently in real life they actually took him to jail.
So that means you get a more initial feeling of realism to it.
Yeah.
So it was very dramatic to actually have these kids in real jail with real cops telling them to take this seriously.
Yeah.
And they went through the process of being fingerprinted, taking photographs, putting a rap sheet on them.
I feel like, going back to if they had his consent, I feel like they had to, but I almost feel like
for them to make the movie.
Yeah, even though it was terrible, and he probably doesn't want to. He chose to be a psychologist.
Yeah, who he is.
So I feel like he might even embrace it a little bit. Like, even though it was failed, he would want people to know, hey, this happened. This is a part of history.
And the last thing that he said for that question was, the interesting thing to me is that almost everything in the movie is a faithful recreation of what happened. Nothing is dramatized. If anything, a lot of drama did not get transformed from the study into the movie. So he just said right there,
more happened,
and a lot of that same stuff in the movie happened.
Yeah. So it's severe, if not more severe.
I kind of want to know what really happened.
I don't think that it's...
I'm probably going to read that book that he wrote.
I bet the book would be the clearest indication.
Because it's him telling. And based off the quotes that I'm seeing from the book, he doesn't... I mean, in the interviews, he tries to, make it seem that it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But in the book, the quotes seem like he's actually confessing the stuff.
I really want to read the book now. What is it? The
Lucifer's Effect.
The Lucifer Effect?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be crazy, too. How are you... I think one of the big deals was that they're trying to make... They're really trying to convince him to take it seriously. Because how else are you going to take it seriously? It's like they're being put in that situation, and then they're told to be taking it seriously, but like honestly, they can't just put themselves in the mindset that it's all real. So I think one of the big things was that he was intentionally just trying to convince them that this was real, so that way they can get the best reaction possible to all of it.
It says, this other question, in the 44 years that have passed, your experiment has come under fire by researchers who have questioned the methodology of the experiment. And then they say, does this movie have the power to change the controversial public perception of what you did in 1971? And he said, I think so. I honestly think so. I have said all of my career that my goal, everything I do, is to give psychology away to the public. And I think that's interesting. He's kind of he was in favor of the movie.
Yeah.
To try to get that out there to the public.
Just the knowledge side, like, experiments like this go on.
I feel like the fact that it failed and it did so severely doesn't really. I think he just wanted that message to get out there, like, just to be careful.
Because his
manipulation.
Book,
he said. The other question was, it is a very powerful film. I found myself while watching it feeling a lot of conflicting emotions. This is the reporter. I can only imagine what you, Dr. Zimbardo, might feel as you're watching yourself on screen, played by Billy Crudup. And he said, it's painful, and he's watched it 4 times. The first time, it was almost overwhelmingly painful. I wanted to walk out of that last scene until I said to myself, okay, stop it. But each time I watched it, I see something new. Something very subtle that I missed before. Something where the sequence is not exact. I'm hopeful that it will have some enduring value. As I said, it could have an impact not only on the individual level, it could have an impact if Obama's idea about prison reform really gets rolling. So this was kind of like a time where a bunch of political turmoil was going around about prisons and prison reform and stuff. And then Dr. Zimbardo says, there's no question we need prison reform. It's a multi-million-dollar failure that taxpayers are paying for. That's interesting. And there are some flaws in it.
Yanking each other's chains.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I think that overall, it's very interesting just to think about it. Even though, the movie, and we might have not gotten all the details in, or some of the stuff in the movie might have not happened, or maybe it did happen and it was over-dramatized.
It's definitely worth the watch, and probably worth the read too, So, I mean...
It's very, I would put it as a very interesting thought experiment.
So, I mean, to the 20 people listening to this, check it out.
Would recommend.
And, we decided...
Sorry, I had to go through the whole thing just to hear that we recommended.
Oh, yes, by the way, check this out. We didn't spoil it too much. But,
I'll probably put spoilers in the description, like, okay, hey.
Here's 45 minutes of us talking about it. Maybe watch it first.
And
maybe this should have been said at the beginning.
And we did watch Ex Machina in the previous podcast, and we watched the Stanford Prison Experiment. So I think this one was more about the movie and how it connected. But I think that underlyingly, we kind of got some good conversation in about
human
prison
behavior.
in general.
Yeah, prison, human behavior, psychology, I guess.
So we'll see where this takes us for the next podcast. And if we decide to watch a movie or not, we might have someone featured on the podcast just to add an extra voice in. So yeah.
And I mean, if you're watching this and you have any feedback, or
right.
what you want to hear, I mean,
what you want to hear, just drop it down in the comments below.
Yeah. Any good movies?
Wow.
Yeah.
All of a sudden asking for comments. But yeah.
Alright guys, if you like this, press that like button, smash that like
Subscribe.
But seriously though, if you like our
just
go
shameless plug.
Alright.
Just watch ours.
We'll see y'all in the next one.